Hi, good morning, good afternoon. We're just going to wait one more minute for some other folks to dial in and then we'll kick off our call. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get started so you guys aren't just looking at us on the screen. So good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Claire Freeman. I'm the Director of Customer Experience here at ECI Solutions. And today we're going to go through a webinar talking about Punchout Catalogs. So looking forward to your interaction with us today. I have Louise Kerrigan on with me as well. She's one of my customer success managers, and she'll be monitoring the Q&A for us, as well as Jeremy, Jessica, and myself. So please feel free to put any questions that you have in that Q&A box. It's up there should be in your upper left-hand side of the screen. So again, for today, we're going to review our partner, Jeremy and Jessica from Greenwing. We've been working with them for many years. They're our Punchout partner, and we've done many, many integrations, and we wanted to make sure that we can share with you how the process works and some details around this. So as you're evaluating your customers and have opportunities, you'll have a good background on how the Punchout works. So I'm going to turn the call over to Jessica, and she's going to start the call. We're going to turn our cameras off just so you can focus in on the content for today's call. We'll be here for answering questions and answers, and we'll do a wrap up at the end as well. Jessica, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Jessica, and I work for Greenwing. I am the marketing specialist, and I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen so we can get into it. So today we'll be discussing Punchout Catalogs, and we're going to provide an overview of eProcurement that's inclusive of how it's going to work with ECI and EvolutionX. Ooh, there we go. So let's start with talking about what is eProcurement. In this slide, you can see that we're going to gloss over the history of eProcurement, which industries use eProcurement, and why are your customers using eProcurement. So if we take a look at the history of eProcurement, it goes back about 25, 30 years or so, I would say. And it started with platforms like SAP, SAP, Ariba. In the 1990s, or I've actually recently heard it phrased as the 1900s, most e-procurement systems, they were just simply non-existent. So you had a few pioneers in the field making waves, but that was just it. You just had that handful of organizations. And back then, it was common for companies to be using a more manual, paper-based process, which was a lot more labor-intensive and challenging to work with. To give you just a quick example of what that might have been like, you might be an office manager and you need office supplies. So as the office manager, you wouldn't be able to purchase those supplies on your own. So you'd have to go track down the purchasing department and have them place the order for you. So the purchasing department would have to figure out, okay, well, how do we source these office supplies? Asking themselves, well, who exactly do we buy from? What vendors do we typically contact for these materials? And exactly what supplies are needed. This did take away the requisitioning for me as the office manager, who would normally now be using and purchasing those supplies. And it put it in the hands of that centralized purchasing department. These processes did lack a lot of standardization. It was a lot more challenging because it was difficult to keep track of the suppliers and all of that purchasing data that came with it. But now if you fast forward to today, you have about 125 plus e-procurement systems, and they've taken away that legacy paper-based process and introduced these digital workflows and automation that we know and love now. And to basically sum it up from your customer's perspective, e-procurement systems exist to help them control their spending and monitor all of that purchasing activity. So suddenly your customers can monitor that activity, and now they can have their requisitions and their supplier onboarding maintained in these digital e-procurement systems. Which industries use e-procurement? All of them. So just to name some, you have your universities, your government entities, there are municipalities that use it, even larger retailers and manufacturers. So some big familiar names that you might know would be Caterpillar, John Deere, Sunoco, Mattel. They all use e-procurement systems. And even smaller mid-sized businesses, we see a lot of biotech companies that come from the United States, and even what you may refer to as your local down the street mom and pop shop. So it's really interesting because not only do you get that dynamic mix of larger international brands, but you also get the smaller businesses now using e-procurement. Why are your customers using e-procurement? Just because it makes buying so much easier, and they can track that purchase data with more detailed reporting from their system. And it gives them control over their spending. So not only will your customer receive that preferred pricing and product mixes you've set up for them specifically, but they're going to gain that control over what they're buying, how they're buying it, and even their budgets. Here are some customer advantages with e-procurement that we're going to look at. Again, control, control, control. They want to maintain that control over their spending. It's the #1 reason organizations use e-procurement. They have the ability now with an e-procurement system to centralize their vendors, supplier information, and approvals. E-procurement systems help create that consistency when they're purchasing and going through the purchasing process. So your customers can now standardize their workflows. It just makes it so much easier for them. So they can have that centralized purchasing department that's highly familiar with the vendors, the products, prices, fulfillment, and they understand how it all works. And now you see individuals in buying organizations from different departments, even different company locations across the globe, having control over how they're placing orders for what they need. But again, that approval process will always stay within that centralized purchasing department. Another advantage that you see on here is your customers can move away from that paper-based process to a much user-friendly digital process with automation. And then they're going to gain that full visibility of their suppliers and the supply chain. And this way they can keep track of the orders, fulfillments, notices, and shipping all within that e-procurement ecosystem. These are some very, very common e-procurement platforms that we often run into, and we actually continue to integrate with them to this day. So at the top, we have Ariba/SAP or SAP. You'll notice that Ariba is often used with a lot of larger organizations and enterprises because it's pricier and it's a more expensive platform that has those advanced features that those customers are going to be looking for. A recent integration actually involved a well-known brand. Maybe you haven't heard of it, maybe you have. It's Victoria's Secret. So when we were preparing for implementation, we discovered, yes, in fact, they're using Ariba. And often you'll see many big universities also use Ariba. So it's common to see it in higher education as well. Birch Street, #2, it's typically used by a lot of hotels, hotel chains, resorts, and restaurants. I would say about a year and a half ago, we did do an integration with the Savoy Hotel. They're a hotel chain, so naturally they were using Birch Street as their e-procurement system. Coupa is another widely used platform that we often integrate with. They actually compete with Ariba or SAP. What's interesting is we mostly see them used by mid-sized and smaller organizations, so not just these larger enterprises. They started in healthcare and biotech, but A lot of corporations we're now seeing and universities have been using Coupa as well for their eProcurement system. Next, we have Equal Level and Fraxion. Both focus on that mid-size organization tier, and both serve your K through 12, your higher education, your governments, nonprofits, and your co-ops. Specifically, you'll also hear about Fraxion being used in the healthcare industry as well. GEP is another common e-procurement system we see pop up. Their clients are mostly corporation, manufacturing, oil and gas, and they're also found in healthcare. Moving on, we have Evalua and Jagger. So they service customers in a wide variety of industries that's inclusive of automotive, oil and gas, healthcare, higher education, and we even see them in telecommunication. And then finally, we have Oracle, huge company. They're known for creating databases and procurement systems. And under that huge umbrella that is Oracle, there's probably about 3 or 4 different procure-to-pay, P2P, or ERP systems, as you may know them, that your customers will be using. So just off the top of my head, I would say I've worked with OBN, Fusion, and PeopleSoft. Those are the 3 big ones that come to mind. And you can often find Oracle being used all over the world in different industries, so they're not industry specific. Fast forward to today, now we have 125 eProcurement systems and payment portals that your customers can be using. And honestly, we've probably integrated with all of them, if not most of them. So what is a Punchout catalog? We get asked this question so often, and honestly, it never gets old. A Punchout catalog is a private B2B e-commerce website that directly connects with an e-procurement system. Jeremy's going to be showing you how Punchout works using a Coupa portal, but I'm going to kind of gloss over the process to give you an idea. So when a user decides, oh, I need supplies, materials, they're going to log on to their eProcurement system. And depending on the eProcurement system, they can click on a link to access your e-commerce storefront, or in Coupa's case, the user is going to click on a tile with your logo and access your e-commerce store directly from their platform. The user is going to shop your products, browse your catalogs. They'll get to see that pricing, product mix, and categories that you've tailored to their organization. And as they're shopping, they're receiving that user-friendly, personalized experience. As usual, the user will add items to their cart, and once they're done, they check out, or as we like to call it, they punch out because they're within that catalog environment. And then the really cool and interesting part about this is that the cart data is going to come back with them. So it's transferred and transmitted back to their eProcurement system in the form of this purchase requisition. Next, they're going to go through their internal approval process. And this is unique to each and every organization, but because they're using an eProcurement system, it's all centralized and controlled. And then once they have that approval from their centralized purchasing department, they may have access to other features depending on what's provided. So they might have POs, advanced ship notices, and invoicing that's automated and works with your system as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jeremy now so he can walk you through our Coupa demo and talk more in depth about Punchout.
Thanks, Jessica. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And what I'm going to show you is Coupa. So like Jessica said, Coupa is a procurement system. So if you've never seen one before, they all look very similar. Coupa is the Silicon Valley darling. They came out of Silicon Valley, based in the US, around San Francisco area. And they have a very easy to use interface. They pride themselves on, you don't need training to use it for someone that is unfamiliar with it. So when I log in, this is our demo Coupa instance. This is what I see. You can do a lot of things, everything from reporting to orders to invoices, all that stuff. What we're concerned about is these additional stores. So different procurement systems will call a Punchout catalog different things. In Coupa, they're just additional stores. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the ECI logo, and then it's going to load our demo Punchout. It's literally punching out to our store, our EvolutionX store. So we have a pre-built native integration. It's on the App Store in the ECI EvolutionX App Store. And you basically install it and work with your customer success manager at ECI to get it keyed up and queued up with linked with our system. So essentially, we're now automatically logged in. You notice I didn't enter a username or a password or anything like that. It sort of just pushes the user in, and my user is named Catalog Support, which is why it's Hi Catalog. But this is my EvolutionX account. So you can shop just like a normal user. You can browse items. You can do whatever you want, just like a normal user would shop in your EvolutionX store. And we'll build a cart. And then we'll go to our cart. We've got our items. But instead of the normal checkout process that you may be familiar with shipping and billing and payment, or any rules that are or approval process that's built into a normal process, instead, if you're in Punchout mode, when we click proceed to checkout, it's actually going to transfer these 4 items back through our middleware connection, and then it's going to land back in Coupa. And the way Coupa represents this is also a cart, and it actually says added 4 Punchout items to your cart. So now I've got a requisition. So in EvolutionX, you're basically done for now. You know that someone punched out and returned a cart, and that's about it. You don't have to do anything. So in Coupa, then your customer, we call them buyers in our system, is going to select their address. I'm just going to choose this one right here. It's pre-built in their system, or they can create an ad hoc address. But I'm just going to go ahead and choose that one. And then all the billing codes have to be assigned. So with a large organization, they might be buying office supplies, which might be under one GL coding in their accounting system. And then they might be buying a capital purchase for computers or something. So what they're going to do is they're either going to manually select them, which is what I'm going to do, or they might have an automatic classification that does this for them based on the item that is returned to Coupa. All procurement systems have a similar setup. This is just the way that Coupa represents it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these up. This doesn't have anything specifically to do with your system. You may just be asked to pass certain, they're called UNSPSC codes, just a categorization system, which we do get from the EvolutionX platform. So now I'm ready to submit for approval. And it even shows the approval chain. I can add them. This all is controlled within the procurement system, not by anything on your side. So I'm going to go ahead and submit for approval. So now requisition has been created. So because I'm actually logged in as an approver as well in this demo instance, I'm going to go ahead and approve it. So at this point, still, nothing really has passed back to your system. You've just, your EvolutionX platform has been used to build the cart. But when I actually go in and approve this order, here's our approval chain. That's me. And this one would go all the way to our fictitious CFO. And then I'm just going to go ahead and bypass the approvals. And then it's going to actually transmit the order. Now, as we'll talk about very shortly, we actually can take in that order. So this purchase order was created. And this is scheduled for CXML. And we're going to talk about CXML in just a second. But this can transmit electronically from Coupa to the to our system, which then pushes it directly into EvolutionX, which can then, if you're integrated, trigger it to your backend ERP system. There's a lot of other things that we can do, but for the purpose of this, this is sort of the Punchout workflow. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my next slides and show you how it all fits together. So this is our EvolutionX sort of eProcurement and Punchout integration. So we start in the eProcurement system, and it could be Jagger, it could be Workday, it could be Coupa, SAP, Ariba, doesn't matter. But basically, they will send a request to us via CXML, which we're going to talk about. It's the language of Punchout. And then it's going to come into our middleware system with our EvolutionX connector. We have an API integration directly into the system. So Greenwing is invisible. No one actually sees Greenwing. It just directly lands in the store, just like I showed from Coupa. Customer shops in the Punchout catalog. And then they go back through the API that we have built. We transform it to, say, CXML in this case, and then it goes back into the procurement system, like I showed you in Coupa. Then it routes for approval, and then the purchase order is created. The purchase order is sent to Greenwing. We then use another API to push it into EvolutionX, which can push it to your ERP system. And then the last part is invoice generation. We do support invoice generation depending on your ERP system. Things like DDMS, and various other platforms are supported. We get the invoice. We then take it in and transform it to whatever format the procurement system wants, and then it's received in the eProcurement system. So that's a lot. That's as far as you can go on automation. The only things that aren't here are sometimes there are order confirmations and advanced shipment notices that can also be triggered to procurement systems. But this is what most of the buying organizations want. They want to punch out, they want to return a cart, they want to issue a PO, and then they may want an invoice that actually comes back to them, all within their eProcurement system. So what is CXML? So CXML is Commerce Extensible Markup Language. What you really need to know about this is just the key terms, because some of your customers will be, asking, do you support CXML? They may not even know the name of their procurement system. So if someone says, "Oh, we use a CXML, system," all you need to know is you support it through our integration. But the history of that is it was developed by Ariba. So Ariba is one of the originators, as Jessica said. They've been around since the late 90s. They were purchased several years ago by SAP, and they still maintain the CXML standard. If you ever want to be bored, you can look at cxml.org, and there's an 800-page document that details all about the Commerce Extensible Markup Language. It's just the language of Punchout and eProcurement. That's really all you need to know as far as how it actually fits together as part of the puzzle. So eProcurement and Punchout Opportunities. So there's a couple different areas that we can talk about. So one is existing customers. So if you have an existing customer that you do some business with and are maybe looking to capture more, or they say, you know what, I'm moving to Coupa or Workday, and you don't want to lose that business, and they say you have to use this particular eProcurement Punchout integration, you're fulfilling their requirements. There's also new customers. So net new customers are If you're bidding on an opportunity for a contract, an RFI or RFQ, we actually did this earlier this week. One of our longtime customers said, "Hey, we're bidding on this this Iowa contract. It's for 3 different universities within Iowa. They bid together to do a cost savings." And they said they have 3 different procurement systems, but our customer said, "Hey, do you support Jagger, Workday, and Oracle?" We do. So they give us some of the verbiage from the contract, and we can help them answer those questions. We're happy to be a resource to help you win that, because then we're actually helping you drive sales and go after new opportunities. Like Jessica said, also, every industry is using eProcurement. Everything from industrial, institutional, healthcare, biotech, governments, federal level, state level, local municipalities. There are some municipalities within states that have eProcurement. Counties have eProcurement. And of course, corporate America, worldwide organizations use it. Usually they'll have one system in multiple countries, but they can sort of run different systems, as needed. But it's everywhere. Healthcare, hospitals. The opportunity really is anyone with an eProcurement system. If they have it, we can integrate with it. So how do you know if your customer uses eProcurement? So the first one is, oddly enough, market intelligence, which sounds like a very cryptic term. You just ask, who you know. We maintain a list of thousands of organizations, internal to our organization, where, oh, you know what? Do you work with Nike? Yes, Nike runs Coupa. We can help you, figure out who's using what. When we start engaging with a customer, we'll often do an information sharing session where you run your top 50 customers, and we'll match it up against our list to see where we can sort of land. And if you say, you know what, I do a little bit of work with these guys, but I would love to do more, what can I do to go to them to help, work with us even more? And the answer might be eProcurement and a Punchout integration. And also, ask the customer. They're not unfamiliar with this. You just have to ask the right people. Whether it's the procurement department, the person that orders from you on a regular basis might not know, but they can, of course, ask their procurement department. Many organizations don't call it the same thing. So users might refer to it as the internal name, Easy Purchase. Swarthmore University calls their eProcurement system. But at its core, it uses a system called eSchool Mall, or ESM. A lot of universities will call it the mascot of the university. But it's just sort of knowing the terms and asking the right questions, like P2P. It's just procure to pay. It's no different than eProcurement. It just really just depends who you're talking to. Some people just refer to it as the eProcurement platform. We use Ariba, we use Coupa, we use Workday. It's just different versions of the same thing. So you can also ask, directly, do you use any eProcurement or procure to pay system? And it's, again, escalating to the right people. If your contact does not know, you might ask them to connect you with someone who is in the purchasing department and can maybe answer those questions. If they say yes, what platform do you use? Because knowing that will help us help you, understand what their requirements are. Many systems don't need electronic purchase orders. Many systems don't need electronic invoicing. If we know that procurement system, we can say, okay, your scope is probably going to be this and this, but not this. Furthermore, you can ask more probing questions. If they do use a procurement system, would they be interested in adding your organization to the procurement system? And are there any requirements to make that happen? Because as we have found, just because you have a Punchout doesn't mean that everyone is going to want it. We hope that they do, but there may be, certain barriers, contracts, and things that we'll talk about next. So here are some of the technology requirements. when you start talking to customers and you ask, oh, you get a yes. Yeah, we have eProcurement, we have Coupa. You know, are there specific technology requirements like, a Punchout catalog, level 1 or level 2 Punchout, which are just two different flavors of Punchout, both of which we support. Do they want a hosted catalog, which is a flat file, Excel file that is manually uploaded to their system? It's sort of the opposite of a Punchout. Punchout is live and dynamic and really great user experience. Hosted catalogs are just like shopping in an Excel file. So there are lots of challenges, and they especially recently with inventory levels, they're stale as soon as you upload them. So Punchout's always better when that is an option. And then electronic ordering, CXML ordering, meaning the orders can flow from the procurement system into our system, into EvolutionX, into your ERP back office system, versus emailing them. We recently completed an integration for a particular state here in the U.S., and Punchout was really all that was needed. All the orders are still emailed after they're approved. There's no way to do it electronically. So if they just want an email, that's perfectly fine. Electronic invoicing, same thing. If there's a requirement for electronic invoicing versus emailing a PDF, that's something to be aware of. And then internal business requirements. So is there licensing for the eProcurement system? So some organizations buy 20 Punchout licenses, so they don't have enough to accommodate you. Some are staffing issues. Some organizations may not have the bandwidth to implement a Punchout catalog. We work with a school in North Carolina who they do all their Punchout implementations in the summer when things are a little slower, because during the 9 months of the school year, they're busy, putting out fires and things like that. So all their Punchouts get pushed into this short window of time. And also desire. That's an interesting one, because they may have eProcurement, but they may not want a Punchout catalog. We deal with a research institute in California, and they prefer hosted catalogs. They're just happy with, controlling the pricing and this manual process, or maybe they just like to log into your website directly, completely outside the credit card, and use a credit card as opposed to having it fully integrated. Those are things that are always outside of your control. If people are purchasing from you and that's the way they want to keep it, that's okay. Then there's some external requirements. Is a contract required? I have heard from Yale University that they will not do a Punchout with anyone unless they're doing a certain dollar figure and there is a contract for a long-term period of time. And I guess they just see that as an investment on the supplier and on their side. So they will not do a Punchout unless there is a specific contract, and that's a lengthy process, obviously. Are there any vendor forms or certifications or insurance that need to happen and be put in place? And then what is the timeline to implement it on your customer's side? Is it going to take them a long time? Do they have a process? Do they need to rely on any third parties or things like that? Are there any timelines to be aware of? So, end of quarter financial system freezes. We've run into that where we have to finish our work by the end of the month because the test system is going to be down for 60 days or something like that. Who will we be working with? On all teams. Like, is it someone in procurement? Do they have outside consultants or third parties that we need to work with? Is there a formalized process? Very often there is. They have a checklist of things they need to do as part of this integration. And then what are the next steps? So is there a kickoff call? And how do we sort of align to make sure that the project is successful? We as Greenwing have our process, and we like to know what your customer process is so we can fit into that. And then there's, of course, the other side. Do they have a e-procurement system at all? if your customer does not use eProcurement, a Punchout catalog is not a good fit. The alternative is they can shop directly in your EvolutionX platform, where they just log in directly and submit their purchases the same way they always have. So how does a Punchout catalog change your customer relationships? These are often questions asked by some sales team members saying, hey, I've worked with this organization for 25 years. How is this going to change, the relationship, if at all? So a Punchout catalog does not replace the account manager relationship. That personal touch is still there. It really just allows the account manager to focus on the higher value activities, building quotes and things like that, enhancing the relationship through that way. But the Punchout is, it's not taking away anything. It's more just building upon that existing great relationship. So it differentiates you from other suppliers that the customer may buy from. So it makes it even easier, less friction. And again, it simplifies reordering. If they just can click a little button from their Coupa system or from their Workday system or from their Ariba system, they don't have to pick up the phone to call you. They don't have to log into a separate website. It's really quick. It's really easy. So it's just so much of a better process. It makes it easier for the customer to conduct business with your organization. And the number one thing, we use this all the time, is stickiness. So we have customers that we have had for 15 years, transacting with the same customers of theirs for 15 years. So it basically, because you have an integration and you invested with them, they will then sort of invest in you by paying it forward and keep ordering from you because it's easy. The thing that we've learned over the last 15 years is that procurement teams and team members do not like challenges. They want it to be easy because they're already overworked and procurement teams are being cut, in favor of this software. So they want it to be easy. So, if it's easy and it works, they will not change unless they absolutely have to. So how do I set up a Punchout catalog for my customer? So the first step is a kickoff call with your customer, an internal team, possibly your EvolutionX team, us, to determine the project scope. Is it just Punchout? Is it electronic ordering? Is it invoicing? Are there any catalog restrictions that we need to set up? Then there's the technical setup between us and ECI. So we'll basically get everything wired up. Then we'll go through the testing process with your customer to confirm connectivity. We'll make sure they can punch out, they can return a cart, they can issue POs. If invoices are in scope, we'll pass back invoices. And then everything is works. Then we schedule go live. So the total time start to finish is going to vary, but it averages 2 to 4 weeks. We have some that go quicker. We have some that take a bit longer. The driver is usually your customer. We did an integration that just went live a week or two ago that was a little challenging because it was basically someone winning a state contract, and it had to be live on a certain date. And there were some challenges, to get it done in a time where the state wanted it done, and in their specific system, the way they wanted it done. So they can go really, really quickly if everyone's motivated, or they can unfortunately lag on for a little bit of time if your customer is just not motivated. So what have we done over the past 6-7 years? We have 37 customers that have been onboarded and live. We have hundreds of connections across those 37 customers across various industries. So we have office supplies and cylinder gases and MRO and construction, customers in the UK, Ireland, Canada on EvolutionX. The functionality that we have available, we have Punchout, PO, and invoicing available. Invoicing usually comes from your ERP, but now that EvolutionX is under the ECI umbrella, we're adding more and more ERP integrations directly from the system. That's all just pre-built integrations. So yeah, we've done a lot over the last couple of years, and yeah, that's actually about all I have on my side. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Perfect. I think we'll go ahead and open up for some questions then, Jeremy. That's all right. All right. Darren has some questions for us. Darren, can you pop them in the chat? Do you mind? And while Darren's doing that, the question here from Keith Haggerty at Greenville office. If a delivery address is not mapped, does it go into a hold status in the ERP until the address can be mapped? So Jeremy, this is where we create that special address mapping, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So
Okay.
a couple different things can happen. So we can add a one-time address, or we can do like a placeholder, or again, there can be address mapping set up. So usually what'll happen is there's the address mappings that we know about that you have built in your system that your customer has sort of shared, and we do a cross match between the two when we set those up. But then there's always net new buildings, and those will usually go into a place where it'll still go into EvolutionX. It might go into hold status. It might go into the ERP. It might go to the wrong account the first time, and then it's a matter of building that linkage either in our translation or in the EvolutionX platform, and then it'll travel the next time to the correct account.
All right. Yeah, so probably on that one, Keith, we'd have a one-on-one call just to walk through that and understand what the needs are. Like some of the larger universities, there's plenty of ship-tos. So we do build some mapping, and there's some new features that are being deployed in EvoX now where you will be able to maintain that address if you need to. Right. Looks like some of the questions came over to the Q&A in here as well. So Priscilla from Kennedy office, if your customer has only some addresses mapped and others go into, and all others are input to go to your specific customer department, is that possible?
So they would be custom, they would be like one-off addresses, or I'm not sure I followed that one specifically.
Yeah, so Kennedy's on, so you said yes. Yeah, Kennedy's on DDMS Plus, so it'd be a parent-child, and they call it accountant department.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that would be fine. Yeah,
Yep,
we actually just did that one with DDMS. Yeah.
That's correct. All right, Keith, not really invoicing, but just passing the DDMS invoice back through Greenwing to the customer's purchasing solution.
Yeah.
That's correct.
We do support that direct DDMS integration.
Okay. Darren, ASNs and good receiving, does the system deal with this?
So
Okay,
that usually, that usually comes from the ERP system. That actually doesn't go through EvolutionX, but yes, we do support that. It's a matter of building the data feed from the back office system to push to us.
Perfect. Nicholas Hanley, hey Jeremy, great presentation. How much customer involvement is required to get this set up?
That is a good question. It varies a little bit. Some are more interactive than others. Some rely on the third party. We like them to be engaged, but typically there would be customer involvement. It wouldn't be probably who's purchasing. It would be the implementation team, whether that's IT or the third party or the purchasing department. But yes, there would be a fair amount of customer implementation as part of it.
Yeah, I think if you think about it, obviously we'll get Greenwing together, ECI, yourself, your end customer, the procurement system. So that's 5 organizations you're trying to coordinate on a call. We try to get as much of that information done in that first call. You know, what do we need to do? What's the requirement? Maybe the first and second call. And then we should be in a position shortly thereafter to set up a couple of test POs and run them through there, and then kind of working everything through an email after that time, Jeremy. So does that sound about right? It's a couple of calls with that group on a call, and then testing begins.
Yeah, because you're right, and that's a good point. It's hard to arrange that many people on a call. So usually there's the kickoff, we establish who's doing what, and there's a pretty big email thread that goes back and forth. If there's ever a challenge, we're stuck with something with units of measure or address mappings, or I can't see this product, we're definitely there to triage and jump on a call. But usually once we get through the initial connection, testing works really well. They can punch out, they can return a cart, then they have their various scenarios. They'll issue POs if they want to see invoices, and our team actually runs through all of that, and then we pull in Claire and her team to triage anything EvolutionX related.
Perfectly. Another question from Priscilla Kennedy. Invoicing is definitely going to be possible with EvoX. So again, DDMS plus customer, then invoicing is in place. So no concerns there, Priscilla. No other questions in the chat box. And let's go back to Q&A. Some from Haley. If we are already on Coupa with Coupa Advanced, would we be able to market this punch out there to get more customers?
So is that probably is Coupa Advantage? There's a program from Coupa that's called Coupa Advantage where they like market you. So the answer would be yes, 100%. Coupa does that. However, if you're not on Coupa, the Coupa Advantage program, 100% you can market it, and we can actually help you with that. We have a ton of branded materials and all sorts of stuff like that you can say, hey, we work with this customer, we'd love to work with you, and sort of help find those low-hanging fruits for sure.
Right. From Michaela, how are users set up in EvoX? Is there one punch-out user or individual users based on customer eProcurement? So from that, an agreement gets made, and then we set up the details within EvolutionX to allow you to integrate with Greenwing, and then it is set up by each customer. So there's users within a customer. Am I getting that right, Jeremy? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we've done it with a generic user before, but it's always better to have it linked to the actual customer. We just have to make that decision at the beginning to make sure it all links together.
Yeah, so at a bare minimum, your customers need to be in EvolutionX, and you need to have your products there. So as Jeremy talked about catalogs a bit, you can set some things up within the platform where maybe you've got a university or even a government contract where they can only order these 1,000 items. You have 10,000 items on your site. You'd set up that catalog into a catalog container and set that customer to that container so that they can only order what you had set up and agreed to. So just some more information there. Keith, again, we have a large healthcare customer that uses Workday. They would like us to integrate with them, but we are having a hard time getting Workday to connect with us. Does Greenwing have contacts that can start this conversation?
So yes and no. I do know people at Workday. I have actually done an integration for Workday Corporate using Workday. It was a very confusing process, but yeah, we can probably help with that. They can be challenging to work with for sure.
Perfect. Question from Joe. Can we talk a little bit more about level 2 punch out? I've heard this term and I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So level 2 Punchout, it pairs a hosted catalog, so a product file with Punchout. So essentially you upload, or we help you upload let's say 50,000 products to say Ariba. They can search within Ariba and say, I want to buy pens. They search for pens, and then they'll see pens from 4 or 5 different suppliers, the same product. And they say, you know what, I want to buy from this particular supplier. So then they'll click buy from supplier, and then it actually breaks out from Ariba, still goes to the punch out of the supplier, but then it lands directly on the product that they were looking in Ariba. So it's a little bit of an enhancement. The challenge is, especially with office products and any organization that has a lot of volume, is keeping the data for the level 2 catalog up to date. The pricing can be stale. We all know it's very volatile. So level 2 is sort of the good, and there's a good and bad side of it, that this pricing is stale. Products, it has to be maintained manually. There's no way to automatically push data to a procurement system, and why Punchout is so much better. Because if you make a change in your ERP system, it's going to flow to EvolutionX, and it's going to automatically show up the next time someone punches out.
Perfect. Jillian has a question. I'm interested in the cost for integration. So I think that's a variable, Jeremy, based on what type of integration, right? And some other details there.
Yeah, and scope of the project. Are we doing just Punchout and PO, Punchout PO and invoicing? But the general setup is there's a setup fee for the bulk of the work to stand up the environment, and then there's a monthly or annualized fee for your first integration. Then if you add additional integrations, there's a per integration one-time setup fee, and then there's a per integration monthly or annualized fee. So it scales really well. So you're not paying a lot up front. And if we want you to onboard more customers, so it's very cost effective.
Yeah, and just so you know, the contract that you would hold, it would be with Jeremy at Greenwing, and we partner with him. Katie's got a question here as well. Are there any additional costs involved when requesting a new eProcurement integration that we should be aware of?
No, pretty much just what I talked about. The only time you ever get extra fees are once your first integration is set up is one, are you adding any new document types? We have a lot of customers that they do Punchout and PO, they don't need invoicing until their second or third integration. So we add that on. That will be a one-time setup cost. Or if you add another net new integration with one of your customers. So you're gaining new business out of that. So, you know, that certainly makes sense, obviously.
Thomas has a question. Has Greenwing integrated with Bonfire Interactive?
So I'm stumped a little bit by that one, but the good news is even with 125 procurement systems that we already connect to, there's new ones every day. You know, there's every possible industry. There's one called Craftable for restaurants only. That's the only industry they work in. You know, so it wouldn't surprise me that there are new ones that we have not heard of. The good news is everybody uses the same one or two or three different flavors. So even if we haven't integrated with them, we can definitely, you know, figure that out as part of the integration. There is no additional cost for it as long as they follow one of the, you know, 3, 4, 5 different standards, which we know they will, because the driver of that is not us. It's people like Dell, Lenovo, you know, Granger, you know, really big organizations. If they don't, they support CXML and all the standards, so it sort of pushes it downstream. So we piggyback on that. Everybody uses the same standard, so no issue connecting.
Perfect. Just looking for any other questions. Priscilla, yes, we're recording this. And yes, others in your organization can review. So we'll send out this recording as well as the Q&A to you guys probably within the next couple of days. So anyone that's registered for the webinar will get that information. You can certainly share it within your organization. So, and just as a reminder, right, Greenwing does Punchout. They are Punchout provider for all of our EvolutionX customers in North America and the UK. So every opportunity is available to you. If you have opportunities for Punchout, please reach out to your sales rep at ECI or come to us through Intercom chat and we'll get the conversation started. So I'll make sure you guys have an opportunity to get to us. And thank you for taking the time today. And we're looking forward to catching up with you soon. Just so you know, our next webinar is going to come out in June, and that's going to be around some marketing features within EvolutionX. So watch for some information coming over in the next 5 to 7 days to give you some details there. Thanks. Great. Jessica, Jeremy, anything else from your side?
I think we're good. Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.